Okay, welcome to another edition of the ISB podcast. I'm your host, Sahil, here with Chris, and he's proudly wearing his Reggae Boyz jersey. The Reggae Boyz were in action last night, and we haven't checked in with Chris for a while. Chris, how you doing, man? What's going on?
Doing well, man. It's sort of a new season, new set of competitive games. We're turning the calendar on that Copa America and getting back to CONCACAF competition. So it's a good
That's
good time.
that's what we like to see. So break it down for us. How was the CONCACAF Nations League? We're going to break down all the matches right now, doing the full Jamaica Reggae Boyz recap. For those of you enjoying these videos, please subscribe to the channel. All right, Chris, where do you want to start? You want to start on the Honduras game and work backwards? How do we want to do this?
We'll go chronologically. We'll start with the Cuba one. I'll just say with that,
You sure you
they
want to
had
talk about that
some.
game?
Well, hey, good and bad, we got to talk about it. I think it was frustrating to watch for sure. I think on rewatch they had some chances that just didn't go to the back of the net. That's just how it is. Sometimes it just wasn't their night as far as scoring. Hats off to Cuba to doing what they needed to defensively. Didn't make it easy on themselves. They've got to play Honduras twice, and I think based on strength of schedule, they've got the hardest draw for all the teams in the League A for Nations League. This game at Honduras was the most difficult one. And they didn't make it easy on themselves, but they found a way to come up with the win and the 4 total points that they need to push themselves back to the promotion stage of the group.
Yeah. So let's talk about both matches because I think they both were very interesting. Because the first match, obviously, Jamaica dominated, but it was the day when the Cuban goalkeeper stood on his head and blocked everything, man. And some of those chances, I was like shocked they didn't go in, right? But fast forward to the Honduras game, and this is a situation where Jamaica actually has less possession, right, in this match compared to Honduras, but they found a way to get it done. So what worked? What worked, I guess, in the second match that didn't work in the first match?
Yeah, I think the adjustment to start Norman Campbell, it paid off. He rewarded McLaren with that first goal cross that went in the box and then ultimately got tapped in for the own goal. Nice work along the sideline to tie it rope and get it into a dangerous spot. And then Antonio just relentless, using his physicality and frame, even his mid-30s now, to create a chance and just hit that penalty. Real sweet stroke to the right corner. Keeper guessed right on it, but it was just too much pace on it, and ultimately they got the 2 goals they needed. They had, I think, 3 really critical breakdowns that could have resulted in goals. Fortunately, only one of them actually ended up on the score sheet. And walk away with the win. I think this is 6 in a row now against Honduras. So
It's really
really
good.
impressive to see that.
That's really good. I mean, Andre Blake had that save at the end of the match. What a fantastic save that was, to keep it to keep it 2-1. I was incredible
Absolutely.
save.
Yeah, I mean,
Incredible
he's
save.
good for at least one of those a game. And I think he made incredible saves, both of the ones that were kept out.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that. How do you feel of having him back in the goal? Doesn't it feel like just much more? Don't you feel like much calmer and much? It just feels much more solidified over there.
I think it's nice when you have him back there because he is going to save your bacon at least once a game. He's going to
Yeah,
come up with one of those stops. It's not that Jamali Wade is not a capable keeper, but look, Blake's been starting for a better portion of the last decade for a reason, and
yeah.
he shows it time and time again, and did so tonight.
What were some of the unsung heroes? I thought Ethan Pinnock had a great game. Just clearing everything that came his way. So he was be mine. I don't know who you singled out.
Yeah, I think Pinnock definitely looked nice. As one of the unsung heroes. Lataboudier, I think, had a pretty solid game. Got into a little bit of a tussle with some of the Honduras players and managed to keep his cool. So, in a hostile environment on the road, it's always important to kind of keep a level head with 30,000 fans and seemingly the whole world against you. So,
Yeah.
good to see that composure.
Overall, you happy with the 4 points, Chris? You happy with the 4 points?
I would have loved for them to get the extra 2 against Cuba, but look, they're in a manageable situation now at Nicaragua, and then Honduras again at home. So I think they're in control of their own destiny if they play the right way and do the things that they have been so far. I feel pretty confident that they can get through at least to the second place in the group. We'll see if they can get to the top of the group, and then what the seedings are going to look like potentially with a quarterfinal.
Yeah, it's exciting stuff. So, okay, let's take a big picture now. Obviously, all the Jamaican fans out there, you got to be celebrating that win against Honduras. But we'll go big picture. We haven't talked about it yet, Chris. It's been a little while since you. Where were you doing? Partying in Jamaica or something, man? Where were you? You're going over the Caribbean or something, man? But we haven't talked about Mr. Steve Mclaren, who England fans out there will remember as the man who stood out there with an umbrella as his team lost to 3-2 to Croatia and got eliminated for the chance to go to Euro 2008, I believe it was. And but what's been your assessment? What's been your emotions when dealing with Mclaren, and how do you think he's done so far?
Yeah, he's the head coach, but obviously it's a little bit of an interim status just from the standpoint that he's taking over midway through the qualifying cycle. So I do think you see a lot of the fingerprints of what Halgrimsson was doing on the team right now. They're still pretty heavily defensive oriented. Most of the roster is consistent of defenders, and they're forced to play some of them a little bit out of position in the midfield. That's still an area of some weakness for them, but they have the ability to put up stout defensive performances and just get enough going forward to create for their attacking players once in a while. So, I think for Mclaren overall, it's pretty clear he was, I think, relegated to being, an assistant in Europe. Maybe he's looking at this as potential where if he can get Jamaica to the World Cup, that he gets back on the list of consideration for a head coaching job. But right now, he had, I think, said in his statements and pressers so far that it's the right time for him to take this job. And yeah, I think overall I would agree. And hopefully he can get Jamaica to the second World Cup.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a good start. It could have been a lot worse, right? He had 4 points, 4 points. So it's good. It's a good start. Let's finish with this, Chris. So obviously McLaren's come into the mix now. So there's a lot of talk about he's the English connection. A lot of these dual nationals are people with Jamaican descent who live in England. We'll mention a few names in a second. But who's on the radar potentially? And I got to start with the biggest name, right? The biggest name is Mason Greenwood, of course.
Right. Strictly speaking with what he does with the on the field work. But yeah, obviously that's a game-changing talent. And ever since the speculation has started in the past 12 months or so that he could be moving over to Jamaica, there's a lot of anticipation for him potentially making his debut at some point, but we'll have to see. There were, some speculation now with how well he started in League One that he could potentially be back on the radar for England, and that's a little worrisome. So as it tends to be, it's not over until I see them on the field with the black, green, and gold on.
Sure.
Because some of the other names that, maybe they were going to get, like a Morgan Gibbs-White, it's off the table. Reece Nelson is still one that they could potentially get. And I believe Tyrick Mitchell, that might be another name, although they're pretty heavy in defense right now. They do well to try and find at least one or two other players in the midfield that they could add.
Yeah, do you think McLaren's going to help with that, with the recruiting of some of these players? Do you think it's a name that people gravitate towards?
You'd think and hope he would. I think he's mentioned that as well in the media appearances he's done so far. So yeah, he also was successful. This was a big deal in getting Leon Bailey back into the squad. It was only the hamstring injury that he suffered in the last game before the break that kept him out. But otherwise, he was set to make his return after almost a year sabbatical from the team. So yeah, turning the page and getting a fresh slate for the existing players and potential new recruits, that is an important component of what he could bring McLaren to the Reggae Boyz.
Yeah. So all exciting stuff, Chris, for the Reggae Boyz. For all you Jamaica Reggae Boyz fans out there, we'll continue to cover the team. So please subscribe to the channel. And Chris, I will leave it to you to say what you want to say, as we always do. Looking forward to the next international window for the Reggae Boyz. Go ahead, Chris. Take it away.
That's right. Let's go, Reggae Boyz. Got the 4 points. I'm trying to get back to another Nations League finals. Let's get it.